coming from a chilly Green Island Gardens on Easter Good Friday. It's not very warm, but the gardens are absolutely ablaze with the camellias at the moment. Spring flowering, most of them Camellia japonica, some hybrids, some other varieties as well. But I just wanted to share with you a few of the ones that we've got flowering at the moment. Okay, so the first one I'm going to show you here is a japonica, Camellia japonica. And these are from which most of the spring flowering camellias are bred. But this is Camellia japonica R.L. Wheeler, it's called. And the flowers are absolutely enormous. They're a good 6 inches in diameter across. And you can see it's absolutely covered in flowers, nice green glossy leaves on it. So this is another red flowering Camellia japonica, and it's been flowering for months. It's been flowering since about January, December-January time. And you can see the flowers are quite different form to the last one. These are what we call a peony-shaped flower. The japonicas come in a range of all sorts of different flower structures, ranging from single ones to double ones, formal ones, these peony-shaped, and you do get anemone-shaped ones as well. But again, this is another japonica, and the japonicas come in a huge range of colours as well, from deep red, bright reds, through all shades of pinks, creams and yellows. So this is another japonica, slightly smaller leaves on this one, and anemone shaped flowers, but you can see how tiny they are, but very pretty shape. Now, over the years, the japonicas have been hybridised and crossed with lots of other varieties, mostly Camellia saluensis. And this has given rise to a lot of hybrids that go under the name of Camellia x Williamsii. And they display certain features of the japonicas that have been selected. So most of them tend to have slightly narrower leaves, very dark green glossy, and they tend to have quite an upright growing habit, which is useful if you want to grow them against a wall, or they can be more self-supporting. They also tend to be much more floriferous. A lot of the japonicas tend to be a little more shy of flowering. So as I say, they've selected certain characteristics of the japonicas and bred lots of Williamsii hybrids. So a lot of the ones that you'll find in the garden centre, and some of the ones I'll show you in a moment, such as one we've got here. This one is Camellia x Williamsii Senorita. And you can just see how many flowers it's got. It's a beautiful, upright, very strong growing shrub. And the leaves are slightly narrower and darker as well than the japonicas. Another feature about the Williamsii hybrids is some of the japonicas have a very annoying habit of, when the flowers go past, they tend to hold on to them instead of dropping them. So it means that the shrub does look quite messy towards the end of the middle and the end of its flowering period. Whereas the Williamsii hybrids are much better at actually dropping the flowers once they've gone past. You can see on the ground there, this one's already dropped one down there. Okay, so here we've got another japonica, this one Camellia japonica Brushfields Yellow it's called. And the flowers are this lovely creamy yellowy colour with these lovely full ruffled centres. So this is another japonica, quite an upright growing one. This one's called Camellia japonica the Mikado. And the flowers on this we would describe as being formal. You can see they're quite structured, very neat little flowers, but they're two-tone colour. Not everybody's cup of tea, but still quite pretty nevertheless. This is a different type of spring flowering camellia. This is Camellia cuspidata, and the hybrid name is called Spring Festival. And you can see the flowers are much smaller, dainty flowers, sort of semi-formal, double flowers, but very pretty. Here we've got another japonica. You can see again the slightly wider leaves, mid-green colour. This one is called Camellia japonica Cheryl Lynn, again a sort of semi-formal shaped flower. This is another japonica, Camellia japonica alba simplex. White, simple flowers, so single white flowers. The beauty of them, I think, is in these lovely yellow stamens. You can see a little flecks of pink on some of the flowers. This is a lovely camellia, perfectly suited in its woodland surroundings here. The only problem is that when they flower as fully as this one has, sometimes the weight of the flowers can actually drag the branches down, and even to the point where it may rip some of the branches off the shrub. So as an alternative to this, I've tried growing some of these as trained as wall shrubs, which I'll show you in just a moment, which is a really effective way of growing them. So if you haven't got a huge garden with a nice woodland area, which they grow naturally in, there are other ways to grow them. Okay, so this is very similar to the one I showed you a few minutes ago. This is Camellia ex Williamsii Anticipation, it's called. Beautiful, large, double flowers. And they, as I said, can get very, very heavy on the branches. So this one we've trained against the wall, just grown it upright, and then the branches I've trained horizontally, just on a couple of wires, and it just needs pruned after it's flowered, just to prevent it coming too far forward in the bed. But it then leaves a lovely green, evergreen screen against the house wall for the rest of the year once it has flowered. There's been a lot of surveys and research done recently as to whether growing ivy and climbers against your house walls is beneficial or not. And they found that actually it can keep your house in the summer up to about 2 or 3 degrees cooler inside, and in the winter it can actually insulate up to about 5 degrees centigrade. So it's really worth clothing your walls of your house with something, and I would suggest this is a really good alternative to traditional climbers. Okay, so this is a beautiful camellia, one of the most popular that you'll find, Camellia ex Williamsii Donation. Very, very free flowering for a reasonably long spell of the spring. It often starts in about February. This plant was actually planted here when we moved here over 25 years ago. And from what the books would say, it would be the most unsuitable position to put it in. But because it was here and had been grown up between the 2 windows, I didn't have the heart to rip it out or move it or anything. Camellias in theory should be grown in a part shaded location, or certainly not where they're facing the morning sun, because they do have a tendency, when the frost comes, if they're thawed too quickly by the sun, it makes the flowers go all brown and mushy. So best to avoid morning sun position if you can. The other thing about camellias is that they produce their flower buds for the following season in July and August, so it's really important that they receive enough moisture during that period of time. So often if you have a very dry July and August, the following spring you won't have many flowers on your spring flowering camellias. This one is in the driest, sunniest position you could possibly imagine. It's on this little patio corner, which is a real sun trap. It's the driest, dustiest, poorest bit of soil, and it never gets any extra water. So it kind of defies all the rules that you would read about growing camellias, but yet it does beautifully. I've had to prune it back really, really harshly because it was growing right across both windows, and I've now decided to let it go either side above the windows, so we're going to cover in the whole of the gable end, and it really is quite spectacular at this time of year. This is another Williamsii hybrid, so again the very upright growing. You can see that nearly all the branches are growing upwards vertically. Very formal, full flowers, pale pink. This one is not really trained against the wall, as in it's not supported, it's just growing against the wall. So these again are Camellia ex Williamsii E.G. Waterhouse, same as the one I showed you a moment ago, but these are growing freestanding obviously. You can see that they're self-supporting, very upright growing shrubs, and these ones actually remind me of the rose bushes in the Alice in Wonderland croquet game. I just have this memory of them, the bushes this shape. Some people prune their camellias to be standards. I'm not actually very keen on doing that. I'm always keen to allow things to develop their own natural shape. But if you are keen on having a standard, this would be a good type of camellia to train in that way. So this is another lovely Williamsii hybrid, Jury's Yellow it's called. Lovely anemone shaped flowers again, nice creamy yellow colour. Lots of people ask me about growing camellias because they say they've tried and they've failed, or their camellias are growing and they look unhappy and their leaves have gone all yellow. And this is an example of one that's happened to here. Basically, camellias need ericaceous soil, they like an acidic soil. And if they don't have it, they get what's called chlorosis in the leaves and they go all yellow like this. So really, if you haven't got the right soil to grow camellias, you're probably wasting your time. There's nothing worse than looking at something that looks sick like this all year round. I would say it's much better, if that's the problem, to try and grow them in pots. They grow really successfully in pots, and I brought several here with us that I've been growing in large pots in London, and I have planted them out now and they're doing absolutely fine. So don't despair if you haven't got the right sort of soil, but what I would say is if you've got heavy clay or you've got really dry sand, it's not worth trying. They need a moist, well-drained soil, a good garden loam on the neutral to acidic side. People often say, oh, well, I'd add some ericaceous compost in, or I'll feed it with tea leaves or something like that. But basically, you can't change the soil in the area to which the roots will get out. This camellia's been here 20 years, and it was absolutely fine for the first 19. And this is the first year I've actually noticed it showing this chlorosis, and I suspect that it's because the roots have gone so far out now, they've actually reached down to the clay somewhere and it's found something it doesn't like. But I'll show you, the next one I'll show you is a camellia that I grew in a pot in London and we brought here with us. So this is the camellia that came with us in a pot from London. It finally outgrew the pot. It was probably about 2 meters tall, standing in the pot before I had to plant it out. But it's done absolutely fine ever since. A nice red semi-formal flower.